So there I am, standing in the doorway of a surprisingly nice hotel room, looking at my wife and some guy who's definitely not a pastor. I just held up a $20 bill and asked, "Is this where I drop off my donation for the church's new roof fund? Or do you guys prefer Venmo?" The look on their faces, man, that was almost worth it all. But let me tell you, getting to that moment was a whole other level of crazy. It all started about 6 months ago, with something so innocent it makes me sick to think about it now: my wife's church volunteering. Let me set the scene for you. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for 7 years. We were that couple. You know the one. The couple that hosts game nights, remembers birthdays, the one everyone says is rock solid. We had a nice little house in the suburbs, 2 cars, a golden retriever named Buddy. The whole 9 yards. I work in logistics, which sounds boring, and honestly, it mostly is. But it pays the bills. Sarah worked part-time in marketing, but her real passion, or so I thought, was our local community church. I'm not a super religious guy myself, but I always supported her involvement. It seemed wholesome, you know? She'd help organize bake sales, food drives, stuff like that. It made her happy, and it was for a good cause. At first, it was maybe one evening a week, a Saturday morning here and there. Totally normal. I was proud of her. I'd brag to my coworkers, "Yeah, Sarah's amazing. She's practically running the church's outreach program." I was a fool. An absolute, grade A, certified fool. The change was gradual. So gradual, I barely noticed it until it was staring me right in the face. It started with more meetings. The planning committee for the fall festival is a ton of work, honey. Okay, that makes sense. Then it was late nights. We had to stay late to count the donations from the charity auction. Sure, I get it. The excuses were always plausible. They were always wrapped in this holy, untouchable blanket of charity and goodwill. How could I question it? If I did, I wasn't just questioning her. I was questioning the church. I was questioning her doing good deeds. See how that works? It was brilliant, in a twisted sort of way. The first real, tangible red flag, the one my gut just couldn't ignore, was about her phone. It became an extension of her arm. She'd be texting constantly, smiling at her screen. When I'd ask who it was, the answer was always the same. "Oh, just Brenda from the committee. She's hilarious." Brenda, Brenda, Brenda. This woman must have been the most dedicated volunteer in human history. She was apparently texting Sarah at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday about napkin colors for the pancake breakfast. The phone, which used to lie face up on the kitchen counter, was now always face down, or in her purse, or clutched in her hand. But the inciting incident, the thing that kicked this whole nightmare into high gear, was our shared digital calendar. I'm a logistics guy, remember? I live and die by schedules. One Friday night, she had an event on the calendar labeled Church Gala Planning Session at the church. It was scheduled from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. I had a mandatory work dinner that night, so it was no big deal. Well, my dinner gets canceled at the last minute. My boss's kid got sick. So I'm driving home around 8 p.m., and I think, you know what? I'll be a good husband. I'll swing by the church, see if she needs help carrying tables or whatever, maybe surprise her, and we can go grab a late dessert. I felt pretty good about myself, honestly. I pull into the church parking lot. It's empty. And I mean, empty. There's one other car in the far corner, but the building itself is pitch black. Not a single light on. The doors are locked. My stomach did this weird little flip. I called her. "Hey, honey. Just got out of my work thing early. Thought I'd swing by and help out. Are you guys in a different room or something? The place looks dead." There was a pause on her end. A tiny one, but I heard it. Then her voice came back, a little too high, a little too cheerful. "Oh my God. Honey, that's so sweet of you. We had a last-minute venue change. The church's heating is on the fritz, so we moved it to the Oak Street Community Center. I am so sorry. I completely forgot to update the calendar. We're just wrapping up now." The lie was so smooth, so practiced. But here's the thing about Oak Street Community Center. It was directly on my way home. I'd passed it not 5 minutes earlier. And guess what? It was also dark. Completely, utterly empty. That was the moment. The click. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was a cold, hard certainty in the pit of my stomach. She lied. She lied to my face, without even a stutter. I didn't say anything. I just said, "Oh, okay, no problem. See you when you get home." I went home, sat on the couch in the dark, and waited. She walked in 2 hours later, smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize, and gave me a big story about how successful the planning session was. I just nodded along. But from that point on, I was a detective in my own marriage. The escalation was fast and furious after that. I started paying attention to everything. And when you're actually looking for lies, you find them everywhere. The next piece of the puzzle was our credit card statement. I was going over our monthly budget, and I saw a charge for a place called the Gilded Spoon. It was a restaurant on the other side of town, one of those super fancy, romantic places with tasting menus and wine pairings. The charge was for $300 on a Tuesday afternoon. I checked her calendar for that day. It said, Soup Kitchen Volunteer Shift, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. I decided to confront her, but gently. I didn't want to show my hand yet. That evening, I casually said, "Hey, saw a weird charge on the card for a place called the Gilded Spoon. Did you take some of the church ladies out for a thank you lunch or something?" She didn't even blink. She laughed, like I was silly for even asking. "Oh, that. Gosh, I forgot to tell you. That was for the church auction. I had to take Mr. Henderson, a major potential donor, out for lunch to convince him to bid on the big-ticket items. It was so stuffy, you would have hated it. But I think I secured his donation." She patted my arm. "It's all for a good cause, babe." A $300 lunch with a donor. Right. I looked up Mr. Henderson. He was a real person, an 85-year-old man who was famously one of the church's biggest patrons. I also found out he'd been in the hospital for the past 2 weeks recovering from hip surgery. There's no way he was at a 2-hour fancy lunch. The anger was really starting to build now. It felt like this constant, low hum under my skin. It wasn't just that she was lying. It was the ease with which she did it. She was treating me like I was a complete idiot. The second escalation came from my buddy, Greg. Greg's a sales rep. He drives all over the state. He called me one afternoon to chat, and he said, "Hey man, weird question. I was over by the airport hotels on Wednesday, meeting a client, and I swear I saw Sarah's car parked at the Westlake. You guys having a staycation or something?" My blood ran cold. The Westlake was a high-end, 4-star hotel. This was on a Wednesday, around 1 p.m. I checked the calendar again. All-day church leadership retreat at Pine Ridge Cabin. Pine Ridge Cabin was a rustic little place the church owned, a good hour's drive north of us. The Westlake Hotel was 30 minutes south, in the opposite direction. I tried to play it cool with Greg. "Oh, yeah, she had to meet someone there to pick up a donation for the retreat. Logistical thing." I felt dirty even saying it, covering for her lie with another lie. But the final, undeniable proof, the thing that made me realize this whole church volunteering story was a complete fabrication, came from the most ironic source possible, the mythical Brenda herself. I was at the grocery store on a Saturday morning, picking up stuff for a barbecue. And there she was, in the produce section, a woman I recognized from the church directory. "Brenda." I decided to take a shot. I walked over with a big, friendly smile. "Brenda, right? I'm Mark, Sarah's husband." She was very pleasant. "Oh, of course, Mark. So nice to finally meet you." "You too," I said, leaning against the avocados like we were old pals. "I feel like I know you already. Sarah talks about you constantly. It sounds like you two are practically holding that church together with all the hours you're putting in on this new fundraiser." I watched her face closely. There was no flicker of recognition, just genuine, polite confusion. She gave a little laugh. "Oh, well, that's kind of Sarah to say, but I can't take any credit. Honestly, I haven't seen her at a committee meeting in months. We all figured she needed to step back for a bit to focus on work and family. We miss having her around, though." Boom. The world went quiet for a second. It wasn't just a lie here and there. The entire foundation of her second life, this whole narrative she had built for the last 6 months, was a complete and total sham. She wasn't at meetings. She wasn't planning galas. She wasn't running fundraisers. That was the breaking point. The final straw. At that moment, it wasn't even white-hot anger I felt. It was this cold, chilling clarity. The kind of clarity you get right before a huge storm hits. I was done investigating. I was done collecting clues. I knew what she was doing. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. That night, she came home and gave me a kiss. "Hey, honey, just a heads up. I have to go to a last-minute, emergency meeting at the church tomorrow night. Someone messed up the order for the pamphlets for the Sunday service, and a bunch of us have to go in and fold and staple them all. It's so tedious. I'll probably be home super late." I looked right into her eyes, and I smiled. It was the calmest I had felt in months. "No problem at all, babe. You do what you have to do. You're a saint for putting in all that work." The plan was simple. I was going to follow her. The next evening, she got ready to go. She put on a nice blouse and jeans, which I thought was a little fancy for folding pamphlets in a dusty church basement. But what did I know? She gave me a kiss goodbye, grabbed her purse, and said, "Wish me luck. Don't wait up." I waited exactly 15 minutes. Then I got in my car. My heart was pounding in my chest, a sick, rhythmic thud. I had this weird out-of-body feeling, like I was watching a character in a movie. I drove to the end of our street and waited. When her little blue SUV drove past, I pulled out and followed, keeping a safe distance. She didn't even drive in the direction of the church. Not even close. She got on the freeway, heading south, straight towards the airport, straight towards the area where my friend Greg had seen her car. She pulled into the parking lot of the Westlake Hotel. The same one. She parked, checked her makeup in the rearview mirror, and walked into the lobby. I parked a few rows away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. This was it. Part of me still wanted to be wrong. I was praying that she was meeting a secret event planner for the church, that this was all some huge, stupid misunderstanding. About 5 minutes later, a silver BMW pulls up to the entrance. A man gets out. He's in his 40s, I guess. Dressed well. He looked average. Annoyingly average. He walked inside. My mind was racing. How do I do this? Do I storm in there? Do I call the room? I didn't even know what room they were in. I decided to wait, to see what would happen. But the thought of them up there, in that room, while I was sitting down here in the car, it was eating me alive. I had to know. I got out of the car and walked into the lobby. It was all very modern and sleek. I saw them. They were standing near the elevators, talking. And then he reached out and tucked a piece of her hair behind her ear. It was so casual, so familiar. She smiled at him, a real, genuine smile that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. They got into an elevator together. I watched the floor indicator. It lit up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and stopped on 7. Okay, floor 7. I took the stairs. I needed the time to think, to let the adrenaline and rage settle into a plan. By the time I got to the 7th floor, I was breathing heavily, but my mind was crystal clear. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to lose control. I was going to end this with the same cold, calculated disrespect she had shown me. I walked down the hallway. It was quiet. I saw them at the very end, just as he was swiping the key card. The door to room 724 clicked open. They went inside. I waited. I counted to 120. I wanted them to get settled. I wanted the scene to be set. I walked up to the door and took a deep breath. Then I knocked. A firm, solid knock. There was a long pause. Then I heard shuffling. The door opened, and it was him. He was already wearing one of those fluffy white hotel robes, tied loosely at the waist. He had a glass of wine in his hand. He looked at me with mild annoyance, probably expecting room service. Yeah. I didn't say a word to him. I just looked past him, into the room. Sarah was standing by the window, pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked up, saw me, and her face, it just collapsed. The color drained from it. The wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the carpet. I stepped into the room, calmly took a $20 bill from my wallet, and that's when I delivered the line I'd been rehearsing in my head the whole way up the stairs. So there I am, standing in the doorway of a surprisingly nice hotel room, looking at my wife and some guy who's definitely not a pastor. I just held up a $20 bill and asked, "Is this where I drop off my donation for the church's new roof fund? Or do you guys prefer Venmo?" The silence was deafening. It was thick and heavy, broken only by the sound of Sarah's shaky breaths. The guy in the robe just stared at me, his brain trying to catch up. "Who the hell are you?" he finally managed to say. I looked at him, then back at Sarah. "I'm the guy who's been funding this little ministry of yours for the past 6 months. I'm her husband." The guy's face went from confusion to pure panic. He looked at Sarah like he was seeing her for the first time. Sarah finally found her voice. It was a pathetic, broken whisper. "Mark, it's not what it looks like." I actually laughed. A cold, empty laugh. "Not what it looks like." "Really? That's the line you're going with? Let me guess, you're folding pamphlets? Or is this Mr. Henderson, the 85-year-old donor? You must think I am the dumbest man on the face of the planet, Sarah." She started to cry, stammering out excuses. "I was going to tell you. I've been so unhappy it just happened." I held up my hand to stop her. I didn't want to hear it. I turned to the guy. "Let me ask you something. What was her story to you? Was I the abusive husband? The neglectful workaholic? I'm just curious what my role is in this little play." He just shook his head, holding his robe closed. "Man, I didn't know she was still with you. She told me you guys were separated. Of course she did. Of course. I looked back at Sarah, at this stranger standing where my wife used to be. The anger was gone. The hurt was still there, but mostly, I just felt tired. I was done. You know, Sarah, I said, my voice quiet. The worst part isn't even this. I gestured around the hotel room. The worst part is that you let me believe you were this wonderful, selfless person, dedicating your life to helping others. You took something good and pure, the idea of charity, and you twisted it into this ugly, pathetic lie to cover your tracks. Also, you could sneak around with this guy. I tossed the $20 bill onto the table. Keep it. For the roof fund. And then I turned around and walked out. I didn't look back. I walked down the hall, got in the elevator, walked through the lobby, and out into the cool night air. And as I sat in my car, the reality of it all finally hit me. My marriage was over, and I had never felt more free. The aftermath was messy, as you can imagine. I drove straight to my brother's house and told him everything. He let me crash on his couch. I blocked Sarah's number that night. The next morning, I was bombarded with calls from unknown numbers and frantic emails full of apologies and pathetic justifications. I was lonely. He meant nothing. We can fix this. I didn't reply to a single one. I hired the best divorce lawyer I could find that same day. I told both our families the unvarnished truth, backed up by the timeline of lies I had mentally compiled. My family was furious on my behalf. Her parents were mortified and deeply ashamed. Turns out, their devout daughter hadn't set foot in that church for nearly a year. The affair partner, whose name I eventually learned was Richard, was also married. Apparently, my little visit to the hotel room was the catalyst for his life blowing up too. His wife found out everything. Last I heard, they were also in the middle of a nasty divorce. Good riddance. The legal process sucked, there's no sugarcoating it. But I was firm. I had the proof of infidelity, the financial records of her spending on him. I ended up getting the house and our dog, Buddy. Sarah moved back in with her parents. It's been about a year now. The healing process is slow, but it's real. I sold the house, got a new place in the city, and focused on myself. The betrayal left a deep scar, but it also taught me a valuable lesson: to trust my gut, and to always check the shared calendar. So yeah, that's the story of how my wife's charity work ended our marriage. It was a living nightmare, but you know what? Waking up, even if it's from a nightmare, is always a good thing. The stories my lawyer told me about other cases during my divorce, man, that's a whole other level of crazy. If you want to hear more, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.